What if the Great Flood wasn't just about cleansing sin, but about wiping out an ancient race of giants? For centuries, we've been told that the biblical flood was a punishment for human corruption. But what if that's only part of the story? What if the flood was actually a war? One waged by Yahweh to erase a rival bloodline, one that threatened his rule over humanity. Before Noah built his ark, before the world was drowned in water, the earth was ruled by beings of immense power. The Nephilim. They weren't ordinary men. They were giants, born from the union of divine beings and mortal women. And in the eyes of Yahweh, they were an abomination. But who fathered these giants? Were they the fallen angels known as the Watchers? Or were they something even more ancient, the Anunnaki, the gods of Sumer? And why was their existence such a threat that Yahweh unleashed a global cataclysm to destroy them all? The truth has been hidden for thousands of years, but today, we uncover the forgotten war between gods, angels, and giants. Stay with me, because this story might change the way you see history forever. Subscribe now, and let's dive into one of the most mysterious battles of the ancient world. The Bible offers only a brief yet haunting glimpse of the Nephilim in Genesis 6:4, describing them as mighty beings who walked the earth in ancient times. But this passage raises more questions than it answers. Who were these enigmatic figures? And why did their existence pose such a grave threat? Who were the sons of God who fathered them? And why was their union with human women considered an act of defiance so severe that it triggered divine wrath? To uncover the truth, we must turn to the Book of Enoch, an ancient text deliberately removed from the biblical canon. In this forgotten scripture, we learn of a rebellious faction of divine beings known as the Watchers, a group of 200 powerful entities who descended from the heavens and forever altered the course of human history. Led by Semjaza, they made a binding oath. They would take human women as wives, breaking the laws of the heavens. Their unions gave birth to the Nephilim, giants of immense strength, intelligence, and ambition. These hybrid beings were not only physically formidable, but also possessed knowledge and abilities that ordinary humans could not comprehend. They became rulers, kings, and demigods, shaping early civilization in ways that still echo through history. But the presence of the Nephilim on Earth posed a dire problem. They were not mere men, nor were they loyal to Yahweh. They were the offspring of divine rebels, a rival bloodline that threatened Yahweh's absolute dominion over humanity. The Watchers, their fathers, had given them forbidden knowledge, the secrets of warfare, the mysteries of the cosmos, and the arts of alchemy and sorcery. With this power, the Nephilim ruled as god-kings, erecting vast cities and commanding empires. Yet their reign was marked by chaos and destruction. Ancient texts suggest that the Nephilim grew arrogant and cruel, dominating humans and challenging the authority of the heavens. In time, their unchecked power became a crisis not just for humanity, but for the divine order itself. If left unchecked, they could overthrow Yahweh's influence over mankind entirely. The result? A cataclysmic war, one that would change the world forever. Yahweh saw no other option. The Nephilim had to be eradicated, and their fathers, the Watchers, had to face judgment for their transgressions. The answer was not a simple punishment, but a full-scale extermination. The Great Flood was not just a means of cleansing sin. It was a weapon of war, a divine reset designed to wipe the Nephilim from existence and restore order to the world. But did the Nephilim truly perish? Or did some survive, carrying their forbidden bloodline into the future? The Bible itself suggests that giants still existed after the flood, raising the chilling possibility that Yahweh's war was never truly over. If the Nephilim endured, their presence may have shaped history in ways we have yet to fully comprehend. This is the Forgotten War, the battle between gods, angels, and giants. A story erased from history, but one that still lingers in myths, legends, and unexplained mysteries around the world. Stay with me, because we are only beginning to uncover the truth. The Bible refers to these divine beings as the sons of God, and later calls them the Watchers, a mysterious group of powerful entities who descended from the heavens. But what if these Watchers were not angels in the way we think of them today? What if they were something far older, something far more advanced? What if the Watchers were actually the Anunnaki, the ancient gods of Sumer, a civilization that predates the biblical texts by thousands of years. The Sumerians, one of the earliest known civilizations, left behind records that speak of beings who came from the stars, beings who ruled over mankind, imparted knowledge, and, just like the Watchers, took human women as their wives, creating hybrid offspring. These records, inscribed on clay tablets over 5,000 years ago, describe a pantheon of powerful gods, led by figures such as Enlil and Enki, who descended to Earth from the distant world known as Nibiru. The similarities between the Watchers of the Bible and the Anunnaki of Sumer are too striking to ignore. Both were celestial beings who descended from the heavens. Both interfered with human affairs, altering the course of civilization. Both fathered hybrid offspring, leading to the birth of the Nephilim. Could it be that the Watchers and the Anunnaki were not separate beings, but one and the same? If the Watchers were, in fact, the Anunnaki, then their arrival on Earth was not random, it was a mission. Ancient Sumerian texts suggest that these beings engineered early humanity, modifying primitive hominids to create the first advanced human civilizations. The Epic of Atrahasis, a Babylonian flood myth, tells of gods who manipulated human DNA, granting intelligence, language, and agriculture to early humans. But why would these beings have taken such an interest in Earth? Were they merely guiding evolution, or was there something more deliberate behind their interference? Many researchers speculate that the Anunnaki, like the Watchers, were divided into factions. Some, like Enki, were known as creators and benefactors to mankind, while others, like Enlil, were described as stern rulers who saw humanity as a potential threat. Could the Watchers who descended and took human wives have been the same rebellious Anunnaki who defied divine orders, leading to the birth of the Nephilim? If the Watchers and the Anunnaki were indeed the same beings, then this means that the Nephilim were not just biblical figures. They were part of a much larger, global phenomenon. Nearly every ancient civilization speaks of gigantic beings with divine origins. The Apkallu of Mesopotamia, the Titans of Greek mythology, the Jotun of Norse legends, the Daityas and Danavas of Hindu texts, and the red-haired giants of Native American folklore. Could it be that these were all different names for the same race of hybrid beings? If so, it suggests that the Watchers, or Anunnaki, did not just descend in one place, but spread their influence across the entire planet. But if these powerful beings existed, why were they considered a threat? What was it that caused Yahweh, or perhaps Enlil, the god of storms and divine law, to go to war against them? The answer may lie in the nature of their defiance. The Watchers, or fallen Anunnaki, did not merely mate with humans, they created a new bloodline, a lineage that was beyond Yahweh's control. The Nephilim were not bound by the same rules as mankind. They possessed divine knowledge, strength, and influence that rivaled the authority of the gods. If left unchecked, they could overthrow the established order and reshape the destiny of Earth. In Genesis 6, we are told that Yahweh saw that the earth had become corrupt. The Nephilim had grown too powerful, ruling over humans and perhaps even challenging the gods themselves. This is where the flood story takes on an entirely new meaning. Rather than simply being an act of divine punishment for human sin, the Great Flood appears to be a coordinated effort to erase a rival bloodline, to eliminate the offspring of the Watchers, to rid the earth of the Nephilim once and for all. It was not just divine judgment, it was war. The flood myth is not unique to the Bible. It appears in nearly every ancient culture, the Epic of Gilgamesh, Hindu mythology's Manu, and the Mesoamerican legends of gods destroying a race of giants in a great flood. If all these myths describe the same event, then this suggests that the war against the Nephilim was not just a biblical story. It was a global battle between divine forces. But what if some of the Nephilim survived? The Bible itself hints that the Nephilim were not completely eradicated. After the flood, giants still appear in the Old Testament, most notably in the form of the Anakim, Rephaim, and the mighty warrior Goliath. This raises a chilling possibility. If the Nephilim bloodline was not fully erased, could their descendants still walk among us today? Many researchers believe that ancient bloodlines, secret societies, and powerful ruling elites may still carry traces of Nephilim DNA. If so, this means that Yahweh's war was never truly over. It simply went underground. For thousands of years, we've been told that the Watchers were fallen angels and that the Great Flood was a punishment for human sin. But what if this was a deliberate distortion of history? What if the Flood was actually a war to eliminate a competing divine faction, a war to reclaim control over mankind? And most importantly, what else has been erased from history? The Bible tells us that Yahweh looked upon the earth and saw that it had become corrupt. But corruption in this case may not have simply referred to human sin. Something far greater was at stake. The Nephilim, giants, rulers, and demigods, had grown too powerful, dominating humanity and perhaps even challenging the divine order itself. The Book of Genesis offers a cryptic explanation, stating in Genesis 6 verse 5-7, "The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become. And the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created." But was this truly about wickedness and sin, or was it about something far more dangerous? If the Nephilim were merely the result of human immorality, why was the punishment so extreme? A global flood, an extinction event that wiped out almost all life on earth. The answer may lie in the origins of the Nephilim themselves. If Yahweh, or perhaps Enlil, the supreme ruler of the Anunnaki, viewed these giants as the offspring of a rival faction, then the flood was not merely an act of divine judgment. It was an act of war. For thousands of years, we have been led to believe that the Great Flood was meant to purge the earth of human sin. But what if this was a cover story, a distorted version of a much older, more complex conflict? The Nephilim were not ordinary men. They were the sons of the Watchers, a rival group of divine beings. If their bloodline had been allowed to spread unchecked, it could have altered the balance of power over mankind. These hybrids, possessing both divine knowledge and human ambition, had the potential to usurp the gods themselves. Throughout history, rulers and emperors have gone to war over territory, resources, and control. Could it be that Yahweh, or Enlil, was waging a cosmic war over dominion of the earth? The Nephilim, born from celestial fathers who had defied divine law, represented an uncontrollable force, one that threatened the established hierarchy of the gods. If left unchecked, they could have overthrown Yahweh's rule entirely. This war is not just a biblical tale. Flood myths exist in nearly every ancient culture, each with strikingly similar details: a divine rebellion, a powerful race of beings, and a great cataclysm sent to wipe them from existence. In Mesopotamian mythology, the Epic of Gilgamesh describes a flood sent to destroy an earlier civilization, where the gods, fearing that humanity had grown too powerful, sought to reset the world. The Maya tell of a great deluge that wiped out a previous race of giants, beings who had once ruled the earth. Hindu mythology speaks of Manu, the sole survivor of a catastrophic flood meant to cleanse the world of divine hybrids. Even Norse mythology tells of an earlier race, the Jotun, giant beings who clashed with the gods, and how the world was later remade. If these myths all describe the same event, then this suggests that the war against the Nephilim was not just a biblical story. It was a global battle between divine forces. The Nephilim were not merely wiped out, they were targeted. If the flood was truly about sin and human corruption, why did Yahweh choose a global disaster instead of simply eliminating the sinful individuals? A flood does not discriminate between the guilty and the innocent. It destroys everything. But if the flood was a weapon, an act of war, then it begins to make sense. A flood does not just kill, it erases history. It wipes the land clean, destroys entire bloodlines, and removes any trace of an ancient rival civilization. It is the ultimate way to reset the world, ensuring that those who were deemed a threat could never rise again. Yet despite Yahweh's efforts to destroy the Nephilim, something strange happens. The Nephilim reappear after the flood. If the flood was meant to eradicate the Nephilim completely, then why do giants still appear in the Old Testament, generations after the world had supposedly been cleansed? The Anakim, a race of giants, are encountered by the Israelites in the Book of Numbers. The Rephaim, another group of giants, are mentioned multiple times, suggesting that their bloodline survived. Perhaps most famously, Goliath, the towering warrior defeated by David, is described as a descendant of the Nephilim. How is this possible? Could it be that some of the Nephilim escaped the flood? Some theories suggest that the bloodline continued through Noah's family. In the apocryphal Book of Jubilees, Noah is warned that the corruption of the Watchers still lingers within mankind. This would explain why the Nephilim continued to appear throughout biblical history, hidden, scattered, but never truly destroyed. If Yahweh's true purpose was to eliminate the Nephilim and reclaim control over humanity, then it seems that the war was never truly over. What if the real battle between Yahweh and the Watchers never ended, but simply went underground? Even today, legends persist about hidden bloodlines, secret societies, and ancient rulers who trace their lineage back to the gods. Many researchers believe that the descendants of the Nephilim still walk among us, concealed in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to reclaim their place in history. For centuries, we have been told that the Great Flood was an act of divine punishment, a necessary cleansing of human sin. But what if that's only part of the story? What if the flood was actually a cover-up, a deliberate effort to erase the existence of a race that had challenged the gods? If the Nephilim were not just giants, but the last remnants of a lost civilization, one that was wiped out by divine decree, then what else has been erased from history? What secrets have been buried beneath myth and legend? And most importantly, could they still be among us? Yahweh's solution to the Nephilim problem was the Great Flood. A divine or failed? What if some of the Nephilim survived, carrying their forbidden bloodline into the post-flood world? If the flood was truly meant to eliminate every trace of these beings, then how do we explain the continued presence of giants in the biblical narrative? Many biblical scholars have noted that the Nephilim appear after the flood, raising an unsettling question. How is that possible if they were all wiped out? Did some escape? Were there survivors hidden away? Or is it possible that the bloodline continued through Noah's descendants? If so, then Yahweh's war against the Nephilim was never truly over. It simply changed form, evolving into a long, hidden battle between divine rulers and their rival offspring. The Book of Genesis tells us that Noah was chosen because he was righteous in his generation. But what did that mean? Was it a measure of his moral character, or could it have meant something deeper? Something genetic? Some researchers suggest that Noah may have carried traces of the Nephilim bloodline, albeit in a diluted form. If true, this would mean that the genetic legacy of the Watchers was never truly erased. This theory is supported by apocryphal texts, such as the Book of Jubilees, which suggests that the corruption of the Watchers lingered even after the flood, warning that their influence would continue to haunt mankind. But there is another possibility. Some of the Nephilim may have survived the flood physically. Ancient legends from around the world speak of beings who escaped the flood by seeking refuge in high mountains, underground cities, or even the depths of the oceans. Could it be that some of these powerful hybrids found a way to endure? In the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest flood myths predating the Bible, Gilgamesh himself is described as 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, a genetic mix eerily similar to that of the Nephilim. He survives the Great Deluge and goes on to rule over men as a king, suggesting that some of these hybrid beings may have outlasted Yahweh's purge. If the flood was meant to erase all traces of the Nephilim, then its failure to do so suggests that Yahweh's war was not yet won. The Old Testament makes numerous references to giant tribes that existed after the flood, suggesting that the Nephilim bloodline persisted. Among them were the Anakim, described as descendants of the Nephilim, so fearsome that the Israelite spies sent by Moses felt like grasshoppers in their presence. Numbers 13:33. The Rephaim, a race of giants often linked to the underworld, were another remnant of the Nephilim. King Og of Bashan, one of their rulers, was said to have a massive iron bed, measuring nearly 13 feet in length. Deuteronomy 3:11. Other giant tribes, such as the Emim and the Zamzummim, are mentioned in Deuteronomy, further suggesting that entire civilizations of Nephilim descendants survived well into biblical times. The fact that these giant tribes existed long after the flood raises an unsettling possibility. Was the bloodline carried through Noah's family? Some interpretations suggest that Noah's sons or their wives may have had Nephilim ancestry, unknowingly preserving the lineage that Yahweh sought to destroy. One of Noah's grandsons, Canaan, is particularly significant. Some researchers propose that the Canaanites carried Nephilim DNA, which could explain why Yahweh later commanded the Israelites to utterly destroy them. Was this more than just a territorial war? Was it an effort to eliminate the last remnants of the Nephilim bloodline? If Yahweh's goal was to eliminate the Nephilim, then the continued presence of giants in the post-flood world suggests that his war was far from over. The Israelite conquest of Canaan, depicted in the Book of Joshua, was not just about land. It was about wiping out specific bloodlines. The command was not just to defeat the enemy, but to eradicate entire populations, men, women, and children alike. Why such brutality? Could it be that these Canaanite tribes were carrying the very bloodline that Yahweh sought to erase? If so, then the war against the Nephilim did not end with the flood. It continued for generations, shaping the conflicts of the ancient world in ways we have yet to fully understand. Even beyond the biblical accounts, legends persist about lost civilizations, ancient rulers, and secret bloodlines that trace their origins back to the gods. Some believe that the royal families of the ancient world, from Egypt's pharaohs to Mesopotamian kings, claimed divine ancestry because they were descendants of the Nephilim. And if that is the case, could their influence still persist today? The idea that the Nephilim bloodline survived the flood leads to an even more unsettling question. What if it still exists today? Throughout history, there have been whispers of hidden bloodlines, secret societies, and elite ruling families who claim descent from ancient gods or celestial beings. Some believe that the descendants of the Nephilim still walk among us, concealed in positions of power, shaping history from behind the scenes. Ancient rulers such as Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, and even the pharaohs of Egypt claimed divine ancestry. Was this just mythology, or were they truly carrying the last remnants of an ancient forbidden bloodline? In more recent times, theories surrounding elite families, secret societies, and world leaders suggest that traces of Nephilim DNA may still be present among certain bloodlines. If the war against the Nephilim never truly ended, then perhaps the battle has simply changed form. A hidden war waged in the shadows, carried out through politics, power, and control, rather than open conflict. For thousands of years, we have been told that the Great Flood was meant to cleanse the earth of corruption. But what if that was only part of the story? What if the real reason for the flood was to wipe out a rival species, one that had the power to challenge the gods themselves? And if the Nephilim bloodline survived, what else has survived? If history has been rewritten to conceal the truth about this ancient war, then what other secrets remain buried beneath myth and legend? For thousands of years, we have been told that the Great Flood was a divine punishment for human corruption. The story, as it has been passed down, paints Yahweh as a righteous judge, erasing sin from the world to begin anew. But what if there was another reason, one far more disturbing? What if the flood was not about morality at all, but about eliminating a rival bloodline, one that threatened Yahweh's supreme rule over humanity? The Nephilim were not ordinary men. They were the offspring of the Watchers, divine beings who had defied Yahweh's command by taking human women as wives. The result was a new race, a hybrid bloodline that carried both divine essence and human ambition. The Bible tells us that these beings became warriors, kings, and rulers, but could they have been something more? If the Nephilim were merely giants, why would Yahweh view them as such an existential threat? Why not simply let them fade into history? The answer may lie in something that has been obscured for centuries. A hidden war, one not just between gods and men, but between competing divine factions, each vying for control of Earth and humanity itself. Throughout the ancient world, mythologies tell us of battles between powerful celestial beings, conflicts that shaped civilizations and decided the fate of mankind. The Greek Titans were overthrown by the Olympians. The Norse gods fought against the Jotun. The Hindu Devas battled the Asuras. These stories, scattered across different cultures and timelines, all echo a single ancient truth, a struggle between gods and their rival kin. Could it be that Yahweh was not the only divine force that sought to rule over Earth? If the Watchers, often linked to the Anunnaki of Sumerian myth, had their own plans for humanity, then the Nephilim could have been more than just physical giants. They could have been leaders, rulers, and even spiritual guides meant to elevate humanity beyond mere servitude. If so, then the Great Flood was not just a punishment. It was a strategic move to wipe out a competing bloodline, one that could have led humanity down a very different path. The Book of Enoch reveals that when the Watchers descended, they imparted forbidden knowledge to mankind. This included alchemy, weapon-making, astrology, and even the secrets of the heavens. Such knowledge liberated humanity from ignorance, but also made them less dependent on Yahweh's rule. Could this have been the true reason for the flood? Not to punish human sin, but to erase knowledge, to destroy the evidence of an alternate history in which mankind was given the tools to control its own destiny. If the Nephilim were wiped out because they challenged divine authority, then what else has been erased? Throughout history, entire civilizations have disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The Library of Alexandria burned to the ground. Sumerians won the Book of Enoch. The Book of Jubilees and the Book of Giants were deliberately excluded from the canon, hidden away as if they can't. What if these lost civilizations and forbidden texts he wore that shaped human history, a war not between men, divine rulers, and their hybrid offspring? And pyramids of Egypt, the massive stone walls of Sacsayhuaman, and the underground megaliths of Turkey's Derinkuyu, forgotten empire? If so, one thing is certain: history is written by those who win wars. If you are of extermination, systematic erasure of their existence. Over time, their presence became myth, legend, and eventually a mere footnote in religious texts. The survivors, if any remained, would have been hunted, their bloodline forced into secrecy, ensuring that their legacy was forever buried. But what if they were never truly destroyed? What if remnants of the Nephilim bloodline still exist today? Throughout history, powerful rulers and elite families have claimed to be descendants of gods. From the divine kings of Sumer and Egypt to the bloodlines of medieval royalty, there is a persistent thread of belief that certain lineages possess divine ancestry. Could this be a hint that the war between knowledge and control never truly ended? If the flood was meant to erase a rival bloodline, then what else has been buried beneath myth and legend? What truths have been rewritten, concealed, or destroyed to keep humanity in ignorance? For centuries, we have been told a version of history that fits a carefully controlled narrative, one that maintains the power of certain institutions while suppressing any evidence that might contradict their authority. If the Nephilim were destroyed to prevent humanity from accessing forbidden knowledge, then what does that say about the world we live in today? Could we still be living under the remnants of an ancient war, one that continues to shape our societies, our governments, and even our beliefs? If the past has been rewritten to serve a hidden agenda, then how much of what we accept as history is actually true? And more importantly, who is controlling the narrative? If the Great Flood was not just about sin, but about the elimination of a rival power, then the battle between truth and deception is still being fought. Today, ancient knowledge is suppressed, alternative histories are dismissed, and those who question the mainstream narrative are silenced. Could this be the final phase of Yahweh's war against the Nephilim, a war not of physical extermination, but of information control? One thing is clear: the past is not what we have been told. The truth lies buried beneath centuries of distortion, waiting to be uncovered. If this video opened your mind, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. The journey to uncover the real history of our world is far from over, and together we will keep searching for the truth. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.